It's football and other F words. I'm your host, Zach Lyons. Down here in Mobile, the draft starts in Mobile. The draft starts here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Door. Oh, I mean, that's cover two's powered by All Four Seasons Garage. You know what? We're powered by that's a bad habit.
I don't know. It might be a good habit.
Yeah, we are driven by Lions Ford. What do you think about that pivot? We are driven by Lions Ford. And we are also down here by Mark Spain Real Estate. Of course, Lions Ford, Lewisburg, Tennessee. Give you the most bang for your buck for your trade-in. Give you all the discounts that you need. Drive a little, save a lot. And, of course, Mark Spain Real Estate. You know the drill with them. They're always going to give you the best experience possible when trying to buy or sell a house. Mark Spain Real Estate. Got Stoney Keeley from Sobros Network, Hot Read Podcast, stacking the inbox of man of many talents. Typically, you are the one with the red face after day one of Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
The wind got me today. Well, you had your hoodie up. You had your hat on. You didn't get some wind burn. I got a little chapped by the wind.
I got a little spot on my hand, but thankfully I have a loving wife back home that takes care of me, that reminded me to get the sunscreen. So I brought it down to Mobile and then promptly forgot it on the way to the stadium.
But today. Who reminded you? Your fellow Lotion Boy.
The Lotion
Boys for life.
So I got the sunscreen at the neighborhood market this morning. And I slathered that all over my body, every exposed orifice that I could find. Got some sunscreen on it, and so far, I have dodged the sunburn.
You did it. You got it. So day one is in the books. We're going to get to all that. Just want to, again, give a quick shout out to everybody that's been down here. That's been extremely nice. I want to give a shout out to Drew at Iron City
Film.
City Film. Mm-hmm. He's a guy that it's his first time doing the Senior Bowl. He's a young up-and-comer. You guys should definitely follow him. And, he's
got a YouTube channel, too.
He's got a YouTube channel. I would definitely recommend following him and, kind of following along in his journey and his first Senior Bowl. Sometimes it's great to see the Senior Bowl through virgin eyes.
Yeah, it is. It is cool. That's rude to call him that.
But well, I'm calling.
Okay.
His experience here a virgin.
It is cool on year 4 of covering this event to kind of come down here and see it through new eyes all the same. And it was really nice to meet Drew. Drew does some great work dissecting film on Twitter. And to see him, I mean, thankfully, like he was getting clips of the one-on-ones because I'm old fashioned. I got my pen and paper going, furiously scribbling notes. But he got the reps of Mike Green winning a pass rush, David Walker winning a pass rush. I retweeted those. Those are up on my Twitter. But just one of the many familiar faces that we've gotten to link up with while we're down here, which to me, it's all ball all day for us down here, but it is nice when we can kind of take a step back and enjoy the camaraderie that comes with being around this event as well.
Well, you say you're all ball all day, but you missed the most exciting part of practice by walking out on the concourse early.
I thought they were done. They were huddling up. They were doing their team prayer, all that at the end. I didn't realize that they were going to do like a final showdown and pick it was 3 different
There was
reps.
Even like a WWE style announcer down there.
Oh, man,
whoever was the defensive coach kept saying like, who is the kid from Florida named Jabari something?
Shamar James?
Maybe it was Shamar James is what he said.
Linebacker?
He goes, and now hailing from the University of Florida, Shamar James. And then he did that for all the defenders that went out there.
Yeah. Well, I missed it because
you missed it.
I thought they were packing up. I was ready to get on out of there. What it was I was so paranoid about getting sunburn. I thought, I'm not going to stay out here a second longer than I have to. I'm going to get under that concourse and get away from the sun.
The worst part about it is being in the bleachers and realizing that I always forget I really want to bring something that has a back to it.
Has a back to
my back always hurts. Old man problems.
Yeah, we ain't spring chickens down here no more.
No.
And it was hurting me too. My butt cheeks a little bit. I don't mean to be so graphic, folks. I apologize, but man, them yams get to barking.
Well, I want to take a moment and pander to our UT fans.
Let's do it.
Specifically to producer Joseph. And because he had a couple of questions that I couldn't answer because for those that may not know, you typically on day one, the next few days I'll start traveling around a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I typically stay at the wide receivers and the cornerbacks. You typically do the trenches. And he wanted to know, how did Omar Norman Lott look today?
Man,
defensive lineman from the University of Tennessee. I saw him get washed out in a few run plays and 11-on-11s, but then he also had to take a knee on. He was one of the few people I saw take a knee after he came off the field to get like some rest. It was obviously a rest situation. Not saying that's indicative of anything of who he is as a player, but that's something that I just kind of noticed from my very limited exposure to Omar Norman Lott today.
He was one of my players that I think we can. I don't know if you want to get into this at some point, but the second practice was like low energy. I mean,
I think it's totally now. You're talking from the trenches and the one-on-ones.
Yeah.
Okay, because I thought at the offense, and then at the very end, I thought it was high energy.
It felt kind of boring to me, and so there weren't a lot of people from my notes that I thought, "Wow, this is a stellar day. This is a knockout day." Really listed 3: Jackson Slater, Miles Frazier, and Walter Nolan were the 3 that really kept catching my attention. But then I got home, and the more I thought about it, kind of going through my notes a little bit more and kind of scrolling Twitter and seeing film clips and stuff, I thought I'm going to add Carson Vinson to that list, and I'm going to add Omar Norman Lott to that list as well. The run plays that you alluded to, I'm glad you said that, because that was going to be my critique as well. There were times where like he just didn't seem to have the power to get the push,
and he's very kind of undersized, right?
He's undersized, it was weird because the Senior Bowl website, if I'm not mistaken, listed him among the D line.
Yeah,
which I looked at his measurements that came through yesterday and was like, how is this guy defensive lineman? But he was getting run with the edge rushers in the one-on-one portions of the practices today. But I think there were flashes as a pass rusher where he had some pretty good strength, had a pretty good long arm, going up against some of the interior offensive linemen on the American team practice squad today. And as a pass rusher, I thought he was more effective than a lot of the other guys down there today. So I actually would have put him in had a good day of practice today.
And see, that's why, I always like to clarify how much I watched when I watched him, because you saw way more than I did of Omar Norman Lott. But that was a guy that I know that has some first round buzz, supposedly, but I don't know about that.
No, I framed it as if the Titans are able to trade back and pick up like an extra second or another or get a third round pick, that's the kind of window for him, for me personally.
Yeah. This was the first time sitting in the stands that I had to fear for my life, because the punters were going crazy. This is our third year at the Senior Bowl, your fourth year. And the punters of the second team there's one that like almost that hit someone in our section.
Yeah.
Just
boom, right,
but there were at least 4 punts that went into the stands.
Yeah.
And I'm like, holy crap, that never happened in any of the prior practices that I can remember.
Yeah, one was close to taking out A to Z Sports reporter extraordinary Easton Freeze.
Yeah. And we know that he can't catch the football because I think Will Levis tossed him one and then he dropped it at training camp.
That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Can't ride a bike, can't catch footballs.
Nope.
All right. So I kind of want to here's a good question. Can you give me this is from Trey Wynn, and he says, can you give an overall layout of how this week is formatted? Periods of individuals, 7-on-7, 1-on-1s, similar to how practices are ran in the NFL. Yeah. So there's 7-on-7s, 1-on-1s. I think the American team was they were the only ones of the day that ran 7-on-7s. I don't recall the national team, the first practice, doing 7-on-7s, but typically 7-on-7s, 1v1s, 11v versus 11s. And then you also have like the individual breakout sessions and stuff like that.
Yep.
It just kind of changes and gets tweaked as the week goes on.
And each team had different practices too. I mean, they both kind of started with like the operational procedural stuff, getting in and out of the huddle, just kind of running through, the walkthroughs.
Right.
And then they break off into their positions. They'd run drills. Then they do some 1-on-1s. Then they do some team stuff, some 7-on-7, some 11-on-11, and then go back to some positional stuff. And like you said, it'll probably change throughout the week, but that is kind of the general formatting for this event.
Another beef I had with today's practice was Seth Hennigan's choice of helmet.
Wow.
There's so many awesome Memphis helmets that he just chose the white with the plain Memphis logo. And I'm just like, Seth, Come on, man.
It's classic.
You
though,
could,
you know?
but you don't need classic. You need something to stand out, especially
like Dylan Gabriel did with the custom.
well, he just had an Oregon helmet. Is it custom to fit his small head?
What was the custom helmet he had that had all 3 logos on it?
If he had that, he didn't wear it today.
Okay, maybe he didn't. No, you're right. He did just wear an Oregon helmet.
Okay, so here we go. Everybody kind of wants to talk about the quarterbacks. And I think my overall theme with the quarterbacks is that your based on day one, which there is a big caveat that I think you brought up on Hot Read, that also Coach Mack brought up on his spot on Cover 2 with Blaine and Lucas, who's filling in for me, is the first off that caveat is they're getting used to how NFL teams want them to run an offense.
Yeah.
So not necessarily you could take away a lot from day one of practice when it comes to the quarterbacks, which also leads to the pass catchers looking a little shakier than normal as well.
Yeah.
Day 2 is when you see the obvious improvements and see who did take the leap, who did take the coaching, who did get more comfortable versus those that didn't. And if I were to say today that you were to ask me who is quarterback 3, I would say they're not at the Senior Bowl.
I would too. Yeah, I mean, I think the group as a whole, I don't know, man. Like as for who do you think has been the best quarterback today at the Senior Bowl?
I would say Jackson Dart.
Jackson Dart. Okay.
But I would say that Seth Hennigan is very, very close to being the second best quarterback.
I might say Seth Hennigan was the best quarterback today. And would I say Seth Hennigan is QB3 in this draft class?
No,
I would not.
Yeah, I would say like when you really start breaking it down, I think in my notes I have Chuck E. Cheese, kind of just typical.
Yeah,
he's just like no ups, no downs. Wasn't really too exciting. I know that he's a big Braden Gall quarterback supporter.
Yeah.
Like to me is like he was fine. I didn't see anything really that wowed me. But then I also think that like none of these quarterbacks really wowed me. So he would be my quarterback 3. I mean, not quarterback 3 out of Senior Bowl, not quarterback 3 in the draft class.
Yeah. So Tyler Shough, I think I saw somebody describe his performance today as steady.
Yeah.
And the evaluation on him is probably has what it takes to develop into a long-term backup.
Right.
Like I just don't think that
he's a Mason Rudolph-esque.
He's a Mason Rudolph-esque kind of quarterback,
probably with a better arm.
Yeah. But I watching these guys throw against air and on the move, like they run these drills where they roll out like a bootleg and then they just throw it to a coach in the end zone. There's no rush. There's no offensive line. It's literally just one quarterback, one coach that they're doing it. And for a lot of these guys, they're rolling out and throwing these balls and they're wobbly. Like they're just like the arm talent for me is the biggest thing, even though Dylan Gabriel supposedly threw the ball 74 miles an hour.
74.9. And they dubbed it as initial speed, speed or something. And I'm like, there was one play because in my notes, and we'll get to my individual notes, but like, is like, he has to use his whole body to generate any kind of velocity. Yeah. And he's like kind of like Sonic revving up in a ball before he like shoots.
That's what it is.
And maybe that is the throw, but he threw some lame ducks and some wobblers. And let me tell you something, Jalen Milroe.
It was tough. Was he 0 for 8? Is that the stat line?
Well, Eddie says that someone said 0 for 8. And I responded to, and this was in the Hot Read podcast chat. And so I told Eddie, if he wasn't 0 for 8, it was pretty close.
It was
like maybe
close.
like 2 for 8, 1 for 8.
There were a lot of throws.
Even on air, it was just him. And let me see if I have I don't have the receiver he's throwing to, but he dirted it 5 yards in front of the wide receiver.
Yeah, and
on air.
It was not a great day. So my point here is that I just don't think the arm talent has been that great here. I don't think the arm talent has been necessarily it's not the type of arm talent you look at right away and you're like, that's a starter in the NFL. This guy can make it. And I think for me, that was a little disappointing in the cases of guys like Jackson Dart and Jalen Milroe. They just didn't show up today. And so you wonder, maybe they can turn it around. There's still time. We talked about the difficulties of doing this day one of the Senior Bowl practices, but from where we stand now, I tend to say steer clear of probably all these guys except for Seth Hennigan, because you probably get Seth Hennigan without spending a draft pick.
So the best arm talent, I would say, is and this is talking about strength and quick release and being able to get a tight spiral in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
Taylor Elgersma, the Canadian Cannon.
Yeah, the Canadian Cannon.
Now listen, he had tight spiral and velocities all day. So the first group, which seems wholly unfair, it's really, and I guess maybe it's like, okay, we want to see how Jackson Dart looks next to Jalen Milroe and vice versa. We want to see what Seth Hennigan looks like. So it's Taylor Elgersma, Chuck E. Cheese, like I said, and Dylan Gabriel. Like that was I was like, man, they really just kind of fucked the national team with quarterbacks.
They did, man. They did.
And I look at Elgersma, and like he had a tight spiral even on the intermediate throws, and his generating velocity doesn't have a lot of windup. But his ability to throw touch passes, his ability to be accurate was not great today.
Yeah.
And you could tell that was a guy, like, if I had to give a pro comp based on what he was today, Will Levis.
Will Levis, there we go. That's what Titans fans want to hear.
Yeah.
I've got a really good, I heard a really good nugget about him.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I can't share it because we're not supposed to be mean, but.
Oh, well, I mean, is it a mean nugget?
It's a mean nugget.
Okay, well, no mean nuggets.
No mean nuggets.
Okay. So Dylan Gabriel, when I say no mean nuggets, here I go. Dylan Gabriel was the complete opposite.
Oh,
he was accurate.
Yeah.
But he threw wobblers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, you know how Jaden Daniels in that playoff game, more than half were in the dirt or like very low to the ground.
Yeah.
More than half his throws were wobblers. Even in the short intermediate areas, no tights, and that very few really sound tight spirals. Like I said, he has to use his whole body to generate velocity on the ball to get it to where it needs to go. I have more concerns about his arm strength than I really do at the NFL level that I even do about Shedeur. And I don't think Shedeur has the strongest arm in this class, but I really questioned Dylan Gabriel today in that area. I mean, there were a few passes where I'm just like, he threw one to Elijah Rorio, who had a great day.
Miami tight
end. And it was, we couldn't tell from our angle because the backs were to us. The backs of the defender and Elijah. It was an underthrown ball, clearly, but we couldn't tell if it got the hands on it from the defensive back. But it still was a catchable ball, but it was thrown way behind when it should have been thrown ahead.
Yeah.
And we're not talking a 30-yard deep route. This was probably 15 to 20 yards down the field.
Dang.
So it's not even that far to have that kind of struggles where there was wind, but there was no wind. You get what I'm saying? Like, I got wind burn, but there's no wind.
Well, because you were out in it for 8 hours today.
So to me, I didn't see it at all today where I thought that he was going to be anything. And like you said, Tyler Shug, again, steady Eddie, no real quarrels with anything that he did today, but nothing to excite you. I mean, he's just a backup.
Yeah, that's kind of, but
but he's the guy that maybe played himself from not being drafted
to being drafted
to maybe a 6th round pick.
Yeah, because I mean, teams need backup quarterbacks, and that's as much as we love the Senior Bowl, there's 8 quarterbacks here. They're not all going to be 1st round guys, and if they can't get Shedeur Sanders,
none of these guys today are 1st round guys,
and if they can't get Cam Ward, Will Howard turns them down because he just played in a national championship.
Yep.
They're eventually to get the numbers, you're eventually going to have to go pretty deep into the bag and get the backup guys. Even last year, as loaded as the class was, they ended up bringing like Sam Hartman to the Senior Bowl. So that it just happens sometimes. It's not to say that every quarterback here is going to be a starting franchise quarterback in the NFL. I think expectations are important there.
Jackson Dart looked pretty good.
Yeah.
He did have guys that got pretty wide open.
Yep.
So maybe it's just a Jackson Dart as quarterback kind of deal where he's magic to getting wide receivers open.
Yeah.
He made a few contested throws, but not a lot. Jalen Milroe, like I said, very shaky. Struggled with going through his reads quickly, scanning the whole field. He seemed to zone in on one side of the field and usually pass it off to a running back.
Mm.
And then, like I said, Seth Hennigan was probably on the day. I bet he had the highest completion percentage. I don't know, maybe, but like pretty close. Riley Leonard, he is the Dylan Gabriel of tall boys.
He is not cheeked up.
He is
bored.
If I were to describe Riley Leonard, it was who is the most inaccurate quarterback you've ever seen in a game?
The most inaccurate quarterback I've ever seen in a game. Oh man, I don't know. I can't. I've watched a lot of Middle Tennessee State games throughout my years as an alumni. I don't know. I can't think of one off the top.
Okay, well, Riley Leonard was that guy today.
Okay.
I don't know. I think here's the thing. I know that he completed passes, but I know people are going to dog Jalen Milroe today, me included. Riley Leonard was probably worse. I think that Riley Leonard may have been the worst quarterback out of all the quarterbacks today.
Out of all of them?
It was pretty close.
Oh man. See, I was watching the trenches, so I caught the stray rep every once in a while. But I was focused in on those tackles during the team drills when he was out there running.
So let's move to right tackle.
Okay.
Tackle. Well, I mean, it could be left tackles. Okay. Let's move to tackles.
Okay.
Who are some standout guys from the tackle situation? Who are some guys that you kind of thought like, man, this guy needs to be a guard tomorrow?
Yeah, so I felt like Josh Conerly, Anthony Belton, and Ariante Ursary, all three of the left tackles from the national team practice, which was the first practice up this morning, they were all as advertised. I mean, Belton he is a violent tackle. I mean, his hands firing to Stonewall, I think it was Ezeraku, had a spin move, tried to counter inside with a spin move, and Belton just like jabbed that jabbed that hand into the chest and just completely stopped it. I mean, it was so cool to watch. Grabbing guys and just throwing them straight down into the dirt. Ariante Ursary was the same way. Big, powerful, physical guy. I watched his tape, and the joke I made was that he looks like a guy whose knees crack whenever he gets out of bed in the morning. He's a little stiff. Okay. He wasn't stiff today. He was moving pretty well. And if that's the guy that you get, that can be a franchise tackle. I really believe it. Really good Senior Bowl practice day one. Obviously, you don't want to put too much stock into one good practice, but he has some good tape. He's a powerful tackle. I think he probably fits the mold pretty well with what the Titans and Bill Callahan are looking for size-wise out of an offensive tackle. Really good day. And then Josh Conerly, as advertised, hit and stick type of offensive tackle, won a lot of reps today. I actually don't know that I noted a rep that he lost. I mean, he looked like, to me, the top offensive tackle in this class. Those three guys really, as advertised in the first practice. My question would be, what's it going to take to see if we can get these guys some work on the right side? Because if you can move an Ariante Ursary over to right tackle, brother, top of the second round, let's make it happen.
So let me ask you a question. Do any of these guys make you more apt to think like, okay, maybe we put JC Latham back over at right?
See, I would not be opposed to the idea.
Okay.
People act like, oh, well, you're changing the position again. Like, no, this just happened an off season ago. This is not, it's not some big change. He was just playing right tackle the season before last. I mean, he's a versatile offensive lineman. They seem set on him being left tackle because it's been said over and over, he's our left tackle. We drafted him to play left tackle. That's where he's going to play.
How much of that is coach speak,
Well, I mean, it could be. I personally, if I were in charge of this team, that I would be open to the idea if you could get a guy like Conerly, if Conerly is there at the top of the second round, if he slides.
If he does, because you kind of said that he may be your OT1.
I think he is OT1 at this point because while I like Josh Simmons' tape better, I think the injury concerns are very valid with Simmons, and I think that's probably the edge that Connerly has, especially if he continues to stack days this week like he had today. I feel like he's working himself into like top 15, top 20 contention. But there is the chance, like, I feel like this draft is just going to be wild and all over the place. So if you got a guy that you know can be your left tackle in Connerly, maybe you do. I would at least be open to the idea of moving Latham back to right tackle, because I think a Latham Connerly bookend set could be like your franchise tackle pairing for the next 10 years. Connerly was good. I told you earlier today, if Connerly and Ursary have another day tomorrow like they did today, I think they're going to be the ones that are like, they're bailing. They're not going to be here on Thursday, the final practice. That's where, the Senior Bowl is going to have to pick up the phone and get a tackle off the street to come in and play, because I look at it like these guys they've answered a lot of questions today. If they have another good practice tomorrow, I don't know what more you'd need to see from them. They were really good today. Those 3 left tackles from the first practice team.
So what about Carson Vincent? Because I've heard a lot of talk about Carson Vincent. I want to read you this quote. The lone HBCU product at the Senior, this from Ryan Fowler on Twitter. The lone HBCU product at the Senior Bowl at Alabama A&M offensive tackle Carson Vincent following a dominant day one.
Yeah.
Now, some of these guys from the Draft Network tend to take dominant and words like that to the extremes, even if it's a normal day.
Yeah.
But this is the quote that I want you to focus in on, because there's that Scott Steiner quote.
Yeah.
There's people that like football and there's people that love football.
Mm-hmm.
I need it. This is all I do, 24/7, 24/10. That's so the Scott Steiner. We got dogs at HBCUs. We got dogs in the FCS. I'm not here as a charity case. I'm here to play football.
Brother, he had a practice today too. I haven't watched. I've actually gotten my hands on some Alabama A&M tape, but I haven't watched it yet for Carson Vincent. But man, he looked the part today. Really tall, long. I don't think he has the most muscle on his frame, like not the stockiest, but
probably HBCU weight rooms and stuff like that.
But the length is there, the mean streak is there. And I don't know if this is a player that'll get drafted, but
I mean, if he continues like
that,
he'll get an invite to the combine too.
Yeah. But he was dominant at times today. I mean, literally, like, he had to pull himself off a guy, because, this is ultimately at the end of the day just practice. The coaches don't let that kind of stuff go on for too long. I don't remember who the pass rusher was, but he had him down.
You think it was Shamar Stewart, since they went on one-on-ones later?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. But he grabs the guy, pulls him down, face down on the ground, and then he gets on top of him, and he's still working the guy before the coaches, like, he finally has to like pull himself off the guy. And I was like, man, that's a dog right there. That's a dog.
Well, he
says it. Yeah.
And by the way, to Ryan Fowler, you don't spell dogs DOGS.
No,
when this reference, it's DAWG.
DAWG.
Making white people look bad.
Ryan Fowler. I know. I hate it. I hate it.
What a cracker.
But I think he also kind of benefited. Like, we haven't really talked about all of the opt-outs, the guys that haven't been here this week. Jack Nelson, Chase Lunt, not at practice. I don't think they're even here. Armand Membu did not practice today.
So, because you never mentioned Membu today, but we got his measurements.
So he's down here.
But he did not practice.
So, and I think it might be like he came down here to get the measurements. And now everybody knows, okay, he's got tackle length. He's got tackle tape. He's a tackle. So,
gotcha.
Wash my hands. I'm done. That's all I have to do this week. But I think a guy like Carson Vincent benefits from the dropouts, the people or the opt-outs, because in that second unit, they were only 2 tackles deep on each side. They were running Emory Jones Jr. on the right with Jonah Savanea behind him. And on the other side, they were running Logan Brown, who actually plays right tackle at Kansas. They were running him at left tackle with Carson Vincent spelling him. So he got more reps because the attrition at tackle gave him the opportunity to do so. And he's a guy that I feel made the most of that opportunity.
Well, when you decide to take a break from football towards the end, I mean, we only had like 5 minutes left, and
Oh
you're
my
out there on the
gosh.
concourse
There wasn't any time on the timer.
taking naps. I heard on the plane.
Oh my God.
Carson Vincent went toe to toe with Shamar Stewart. He won, and then he goes and headbutts three. Everybody had helmets on.
Yeah.
After he beats Shamar Stewart, while the defense is having to do 25 push-ups because he beat Shamar Stewart, he goes and headbutts 3 teammates at minimum.
Yeah.
That dude was so pumped up. Like, that is a guy now I'm excited. Like, he's almost appointment viewing for me day 2 tomorrow. I want to go watch Carson Vincent tomorrow because he did all that. I'm like, this could be like the steal of the draft. If you just add a little bit more muscle on him, he may be able to turn into something worthy. And if he keeps putting practices together like this, it's hard to deny that he could go up against. I mean, I'm not saying that he's a starter, but if you're telling me that I can have, and I don't mean to say this and hurt your feelings, Carson Vincent as a backup tackle versus Jalen Duncan or John Ojukwu, I'm going Carson Vincent. Yeah. And again, this is a guy that may end up working his way to the top of day 3. But at this point, we got to keep in mind that he is from Alabama A&M, and he is going up against really good competition here. But even the competition at the NFL is another level.
Yeah, I mean, Shamar Stewart's like a potential top 20 pick.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good athlete, good size. Like he's a freak. Shamar Stewart's a freak, and Carson Vincent made short work of him.
All right, Gray Zabel. Here's your Gray Zabel. Yeah. Just had the floor because everybody's talking about Gray Zabel.
Yeah, he had a stellar practice. I mean,
North Dakota State lineman.
North Dakota State offensive tackle on tape. They were working him at guard primarily down here, with center reps sprinkled in. So interior, I think he could play right guard, which looks like a spot that the Titans may need. The Titans may need a center that they can develop too. I mean, the long-term health of Lloyd Cushenberry, we've kind of heard rumblings about the free agent spending. It kind of makes me wonder if he was too big of a ticket addition as well. Maybe, maybe Cushenberry's not in the long-term plans of this new regime is what I'm getting at. So maybe you need a center. Gray Zabel is a guy that is going to be day 2, so you're going to have to invest one of the more premium picks on him. But, man, he was awesome today. A guy that embodied low man wins, like just real squatty, could get those hips, those shoulders down, cinch in with his hands, really tight, strong hands, footwork to mirror edge rushers to hang on and ride guys throughout the rep. I wrote down at one point, he's a wrestler, hand strength, mirror footwork, chewed up ground like he's tilling land. I mean, just like sawing into the dirt with those feet, the foot drive, really complete prospect for an offensive lineman. I think the only thing that limits him were the measurables that came out yesterday. He was a tad.
Did they try him at all at tackle today? No. Do you think they may try tomorrow?
I don't see why not, especially if I'm right and like Ursery and Connerly skip town early, they're going to have somebody playing tackle, I would assume. So unless they just don't have tackles practice that day, but I think he could get some run at tackle. I think the length is the only real concern with that, but man, he is a scrappy, stop me if you've heard this before, a North Dakota State offensive lineman that's scrappy getting out there and chopping it up with people. It was really impressive. I mean, he was hell on wheels today.
What did you think about? Okay, so I know you talked about Anthony Belton, but didn't you say they choke slammed somebody?
Landon Jackson. Yeah, there was a rep.
Which I've heard that most people did not like Landon Jackson's day. I heard he was on the ground 3 times.
He did not have the best day. I don't think he did anything spectacular either way. The only play that comes to mind is getting choke slammed by Anthony Belton, who just reached up with those damn near 11-inch hands and just shoved him into the ground. And Landon Jackson just ate shit. It was it was not the day that fans of Landon Jackson were hoping for. But the way I kind of see it is also he's not one of these freak bendy guys. And in the one-on-ones, those are the plays that tend to pop down here. Is the pass rush moves, the spin moves, the rip moves, the swim moves, the counters, all that stuff. And he just wasn't really throwing moves at people. He was trying to play his game, and his game is power, setting the edge, And that kind of stuff is kind of boring to onlookers. So I don't think people noticed, even on the reps that he did win. But I did notice he did not have a spectacular day.
Okay, before we get into pass catchers, defensive line, more edge rushers and stuff like that, shout out to Lions Ford in Lewisburg, Tennessee. Drive a little, save a lot. They'll make sure that you get all of the rebates that you qualify for, all the discounts that you qualify for in new cars, and we'll give you the most bang for your buck on trade-ins. They have a good selection of pre-owned vehicles as well. And if they don't have it, they'll find it for you. They'll scour the ends of the earth for you. And, of course, Mark Spain Real Estate, one of the leading real estate brokers in Nashville, Tennessee. They are dependable. They are efficient. One of the best places you can go if you are in need of to sell your house. Mark Spain Real Estate as well. Okay, so Tez Johnson,
skinny boy,
yeah, but he's got some Tank Dell to him. But here's the issue with that. Much like Hollywood Brown, much like Tank Dell, injury issues abound. But that is a guy that knows how to get open. That is a guy that he can change his speed, which is a key to separation. And then he kind of knows how to get to a corner to stop his feet more momentarily to take advantage. Like, he did a move, I believe it was him, and not, I think it was him. So they were doing these sideline drills, and everybody was turning up to go out of bounds. He turned up to go to the end zone. Again, doesn't sound like much, but that's a guy that has taken that extra step. So while his size is unimpressive, the ability to separate and generate separation is important.
He's explosive in a phone booth, like can change direction instantly and separate.
So that leads me to, because I thought the Group 1 pass catchers were very underwhelming from the wide receiver side.
Yeah.
The tight ends clearly were the better group when it comes to pass catchers. Elijah Arroyo really stands out. He was pretty amazing all damn day. But I have to say, Jalen Lane,
kid out of Virginia Tech.
Jalen Lane really caught my eye early. Everybody else kind of had like one or two plays where you're like, oh, that's a good play.
Yeah.
But Jalen Lane constantly showed up throughout the day, making contested catches, getting open, generating plays, using his hands and his arms appropriately to kind of create a little bit of space. It didn't matter where you threw to him. He was more than likely going to come down with it. And he's a guy that's almost the same size as Tez Johnson. I thought Jaden Higgins did not live up to the hype at all. We'll see how he responds and bounces back today. He never really got down in the dumps, kind of like Andre Yoshevitz did his first day. He got really in his head.
Yeah.
But he had a lot of drops, couldn't generate separation. And his counterpart, Jalen Noel, had one good play, great, amazing sideline catch. But none of the other guys, they really stood out. And that really concerns me about Xavier Restrepo, too. Yeah. Now, is that because of bad quarterback play? So that could be. We'll see tomorrow.
Yeah, I know our buddy Easton Freeze kind of commented a couple of times that he felt Restrepo was pretty consistently getting open, that the ball just wasn't coming to him. But I wanted to ask you specifically, because you watched him today, the two names that I get in my mentions all the time from Titans fans from the group this morning that I see a lot of love for are Jaden Higgins and Pat Bryant. We got a little bit of your Jaden Higgins eval from today, but what did you make of Pat Bryant? Did he do anything to stand out to you? You know, I'm not that big of a Pat Bryant.
No, and Draft Network threw out a, good on good, one-on-one rep. Yeah, and I don't even think he got his feet in bounds. He made a pretty good catch, but I don't think it actually counted as a catch. I'll have to go back and watch the tape. But Pat Bryant, again, did not generate separation. He's a fast dude. He should be able to generate separation. And him and Jaden Higgins, they didn't look that much different from a guy like Arian Smith in the second group.
Oh, okay.
Who's from Georgia. A little bit more undersized, but he couldn't. I mean, when I saw Pat Bryant play, I was like, initially, because we didn't have the rosters, and the helmet, for whatever reason, looked like a Florida Gators helmet for the first group. I was like, man, this Florida Gators wide receiver kind of sucks.
Who is this?
And like Bryant, and I, for whatever reason, did not register to me that Illinois Pat Bryant and all this stuff until we were talking about, I was like, there's this guy from Florida named Bryant, and then someone overheard and was like, yeah, what'd you think of Pat? You talk about Pat Bryant? I'm like, oh, is that who that was? So I wasn't the only one to think that, he did not have a good day. But the wide receivers as a whole, very underwhelming in Group 1. With Jalen Lane leading the way, I would say Tez Johnson, a close number 2, and Jalen Noel, a distant number 3. But I will say this, and I was looking up his the guy. Okay, so we're on the first group was
the national. They were the national.
Okay, hold on.
Who's left?
Okay, so no, Jamal Pritchett in the second group. So we'll
South
transition
Alabama
to second group real quick.
Yeah, okay.
He was pretty good. I thought that he did pretty well for a South Alabama wide receiver, against the competition and everything. I think that maybe he'll be a guy that I'll look at. They had him at punt returner and all that kind of stuff as well.
They always have a South Alabama receiver down here. Jalen Tolbert. Who was the other one? Jalen Wayne.
Yeah,
I think. And now,
So group number 2, Jack Beck.
Jack Beck.
Okay.
Nice catch outside of his.
He did. I think Seth Hennigan, put it in the right spot for him to get it. That was Seth Hennigan throwing that ball. But what was interesting is that in the 1v1s, this was after, I guess you were probably up there. This is, before the Vinson, destruction. Upton Stout was lined up 1-on-1 with Jack Beck to close out practice.
Mm-hmm.
Upton Stout held his own on Jack Beck. So that dude does not play like he's 5'8", 5'9".
So they're playing him at corner. They're playing Upton Stout at corner? Oh, cool.
I think they moved him around a couple different places, but at this particular spot, I guess they just chose some standouts. Yeah. And he was the standout for today from their team. And he went up against Jack Beck. He got him. He got him good.
Wow.
And I will also say, so Jack Beck, as advertised, right? As advertised.
Yes.
I don't think there was anything wrong with his game, flaws. Too. He looked good as well. But I will say, Ty Felton had the most consistent day.
Man, I put him in that category of some of these gadgety slot guys, lighter frame. He's longer than the others we've talked about today, but really crisp footwork that I noticed, really like sudden breaks, good quick release package, seemed to be getting open from what I saw, but just watching him through the position drills, like a really fluid, seamless athlete that I think has the tape to back it up. Like Maryland, not the most productive offense. And again, it seems to be a theme with this wide receiving group that's down here is like, you look at the production and you're kind of like, I don't know how'd this guy get down here, but he really showed some athleticism today and some quickness that I was impressed with.
What I liked about him is that he made every kind of catch he needed to make. He got open deep. Yeah. He made a contested catch in the intermediate area, made all of the short catches you need to do, generated a lot of separation, and then he even stumbled out of his break, but regained balance and beat Jacob Parrish by a few yards. So not only was Jacob Parrish on him, Kansas State cornerback was on him, he stumbled and then still somehow generated separation.
So who was throwing the ball to him?
I did not make a note of that.
I'd be
not Jalen Milroe or Riley Leonard, I'll tell you that. So it was 1 of 2.
Seth Hennigan or Jackson Dart.
Yeah. A guy that kind of stood out was his name Brandon Adams, the defensive cornerback from UCF.
UCF, okay.
So he made a big stop at the beginning of practice, and he came out, okay? And he was talking so much shit. And this is before they started playing the music during practice, and you could hear him.
Yeah.
He's like, it is at the very beginning. He's like, all day, I told everybody, all the coach, he's on the coach's side of the field. So all the coaches hear him. And then almost at the very end, he got beat by Jalen Royals pretty bad. And you didn't hear a peep out of him.
Oh man.
And Jalen Royals is a guy that I want to bring up. That's a guy I want to see more of. I like his build as a slot receiver. He's very stocky, almost Jamison Crowder-esque kind of build. But I want to see him generate a little bit more separation. He got open a few times, but they never threw to him. So, it's kind of like you see it, but then you don't get to see it.
Yeah. I like Jalen Royals' tape quite a bit, and to your point, like coming in at 210, that's a good number for a slot receiver.
Right.
Stocky
build. Guy. I will say this, just to throw this out there. Running backs, just real quick before we close out the show, talking about edge rushers. The Auburn running back, Jarquez Martin.
Yep.
Jarquez Hunter. He was not here for your weak tackles. Maxwell Hairston.
Yeah.
I should be just looking these up, while I'm here. Let's see. Yeah, Hairston. Maxwell Hairston had a really good day today, but Jarquez Hunter, he went in for a pretty physical tackle, and Jarquez Hunter, he went into rigor mortis. He just bounced off of him, and you just saw Hairston just freeze in midair, and just go to the ground.
Yeah.
And it took a while for someone to bring him down. He kept on running, and Ollie Gordon looks the part. Smooth pass catcher, explosive, big. That dude looks the part. So, I know the Tennessee Titans don't necessarily need a running back, but if they were looking for a complimentary running back, this is the class to find it. These guys are every running back at Senior Bowl today. They're all better than Julius Chestnut.
Yeah, and that's what I was just about to say. If they wanted a potential upgrade on the Julius Chestnut spot, there are plenty of backs in this class. If they were, I think that the class is stacked so much that they could probably get a good contributor even undrafted.
Yeah.
At this point. Did you mention Damian Martinez? I was checking my notes.
No, I didn't. He looked really good, but I wasn't really focused in on the running back, so you had to really catch my eye.
Yeah.
But I will say this. I'll tell you something that caught my eye. Thomas Fidone II from Nebraska. Watch him go back to the huddle this week. He looks like a praying mantis.
What does that mean?
You just have to watch it. Yes, he has long arms, and then he walks he runs back like this.
Oh, wow.
He looks like a praying mantis. Listen, Drew, the Iron City Films.
Yeah.
He said this is the most accurate tweet of all time when I put that out on tweet.
That's good.
So I wasn't the only one to see.
Yeah,
that guy looks like the praying mantis.
Yeah.
Okay. Someone did bring up Harold Fanning Jr. You have a tell about Harold Fanning Jr., and I do as well, so I'll let you do it first.
So watching his tape, he doesn't look like the most imposing blocker in line. He can I've only watched a couple of his games. He can catch the stray every once in a while in space when a guy's not really barreling down on him, catch him off guard, knock him off the point. But I don't think as an inline blocker, just lining up one-on-one, I would say that is a strength of his. But today, watching the O-line team drills, they brought some of the tight ends over to go up against some of the edge rushers. And I thought Fannin had a wow rep. I mean, it wasn't just that's pretty good. But Josiah Stewart, who I think up and down,
didn't he measure in at 6 feet?
Yeah, on the shorter side of the edge rushers. But I've seen some people that really liked his day. I thought he was fine. I thought he won plenty of reps, looked good enough. I don't think he drastically improved his stock, but he's still a good quality edge rusher. And Fannin Jr. just cracked his ass at the end of the line of scrimmage. Josiah Stewart kind of barreling down, and he just cleaned his clock. He just stood him up and backed him down. And I thought the pop was so intense. I was like, damn, that is what has been missing on his tape. And that is what could make him a complete tight end, potentially the best tight end in this draft class, because I think it's him and Tyler Warren right now.
He had a few concentration drops. That's what I saw.
Okay, well, never mind what I just said.
I mean, he'll probably get better, but he got one right in the breadbasket and just dropped it. And that's what I saw, and I was like, man, come on.
You can't have that. I mean, especially on this stage when you're already kind of battling the small school allegations, you've got to have You've got to have a stellar practice week down here.
Okay, so edge and defensive lineman is the next thing I want to hit on now. Tennessee Titans technically don't need a defensive lineman, but they definitely need edge rushers. Group 1 felt like, from the way that you talked about it, had the superior group.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Mike Green coming in at 251 kind of adding on an extra 15 to 20.
Were the hands any kind of problem today?
Hands didn't seem like any kind of problem to me. We talked about the hand size being a little undersized, but it didn't come into play at all. He has got some bend. he is rock solid. He was going toe to toe with some of these tackles that he was winning reps. He was throwing moves at guys. Like it was everything you want him to be. And I just caught myself thinking, like, if he has days like that, another guy that might have another good day tomorrow.
Who were some of the guys that he went up against?
Well, he would have been he was in the first group. So, I mean, they were lining him up. He was going up against Ursery and Belton and Connerly and those guys, and then going off on the right side. Not as good of a group, but that was I think that was the Ozzy Trapilo group.
Yeah.
I don't remember who else they were playing at right tackle. It's in my notes somewhere, but Jalen Travis, statuesque Jalen Travis. But he really answered the bell, and he kind of looked to me like, man, if he stacks a day like that again tomorrow, and that's his Senior Bowl practice, like you could feel justified in taking him in the first round, I think.
What about Donovan Uzuraku?
Man, I've seen a lot of people that were saying, wow, he was really solid today. And I don't know if I'm going to get access to the film to go back and watch it. I'm doing my best. I'm efforting that. But from what I saw, from what I caught, I was not really too impressed by him. I thought he had a good day in run drills where they're running the ball. And I felt like he was kind of solid, getting into the gap, setting the edge, those sorts of things. But man, he was throwing, and a lot of the reps that I really noticed him on were against this left tackle group in the first team, which we've established was a pretty good group, but like throwing moves at guys and just getting stonewalled, spin moves and just getting hit in the chest, like wasn't really separating as an edge rusher, wasn't really throwing moves at guys and beating them. And to me, I just kind of thought this is a little, I don't think he really improved his stock today. I'll say it like that.
That's interesting because I did see his name tossed out a lot.
A lot of people liked him, but I mean, then again, like I saw a guy that tweeted Kyle Kennard was good today. So I mean, you never know what people are seeing.
Different strokes for different folks. Anybody else out of that first group of edge rushers that really caught your eye, or was it really just the Mike Green show?
It was the Mike Green show, but I would mention I do want to give David Walker a shout out. I know the measurements were not ideal for him. Came in really short, undersized, the arm length, all that stuff, like prototypical undersized pass rusher. Kind of concerned about how that was going to play out against these bigger, stronger, more athletic offensive tackles, but he did not he did not dominate, far from it. But I do think there were a couple of reps that he was really impressive on, including one where I jotted down Walker hammered Imbo's chest. They had Imbo at right tackle. That was part of it too. Hammered the chest, caved in the pocket, would have been a sack if it were an actual game. So I would mention him as well. I think it might have been a bit of a shaky start for him, but I think he laid the foundation to build upon the rest of the week.
I will say this, in group number 2, a guy that kind of forgot was down here that I didn't hear anybody talk about, Princely Umanalien. Your mom and alien.
Yeah, what about him?
Did he do anything today? I didn't hear anything.
I didn't notice him at all. His teammates, I did.
Yeah.
Walter Nolan, I thought, had a fantastic day. He's like a pure disruptor, 3-tech defensive lineman, which I don't know that the Titans will be shopping for this offseason. But even Jared Ivey, like, had some really rough reps, which kind of coincides with the tape. But I really like his frame, power, and consistency on tape. And I felt like he had some pop today too. Didn't win every rep, but I jotted his name down a few times.
So, I mean, you got Shamar Stewart, Kyle Kennard, Jared Ivey, Sevion Jones, R.J. Oben, Baron Sorrell, and Princely Umanalien.
Yeah.
Out of those, who stood out the most?
Read them to me again.
Okay, so we got Princely Umanalien,
the Ole Miss
Baron
guys.
Sorrell,
yeah,
Kyle Kennard, Shamar Stewart.
It was Shamar Stewart.
Okay.
Yeah, it was Shamar Stewart.
Pretty clear.
Pretty clear. It's what we were talking about. Were we on air when I said that the offensive and defensive line felt very low energy in the
No, well, yes, you did.
That's kind of what I mean. Like, I don't felt like I didn't feel like any of the edge rushers really stood out. I didn't really feel like any of the tackles stood out in the second practice. There was a lot of defensive line, like Walter Nolan reps that I thought were good, and a lot of reps from the centers and the guards that I thought were really good. But I felt like the tackle play and the edge play in that second group was just really, really kind of uninspiring, left a little to be desired.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it kind of sounds like, and they didn't really show up in the 11-on-11s or 7-on-7s or anything like that. Because even Aeneas Peebles from the first group, he was wrecking shop in the run game.
Tornado.
Yeah, and apparently Mike Tomlin came over after a couple of reps and was just like on the field giving him like props and all this stuff.
Oh, he's a Steeler. He looks like a Steeler.
Yeah.
That's how they reload too, by the way. They just keep plucking these defensive linemen.
I will say this because someone did ask about safety, and I didn't really pay too much attention to the safeties.
They're hard to evaluate.
But I will say that Billy Bowman Jr. was a guy who, standing next to Upton Stout, kind of looked the same build and same height and everything. Mm-hmm. But he was a guy that was making plays. And in fact, I believe someone on the Draft Network even wrote an article about the play that he made today and put in the clip of the play that he made. And I didn't go back to look at it, but I just put a note down, Billy Bowman Jr. So
I do that sometimes too. I'm like, I'll just jot down a name. I'm like, I got to revisit this guy.
But I will say Billy Bowman Jr. is a guy that in those kind of like that Cole Bishop mode in the fourth round, day 3 kind of safeties, where if you're looking for a guy that's going to make plays, that could be a guy for you.
Okay. That's good to know. There we go.
All right, just real quick, Tony Pauline is reported from the Shrine Bowl that the Las Vegas Raiders are highly motivated to get in the top 2 picks, which, of course, one of those is the Tennessee Titans and the other one is the Cleveland Browns. So, being that they're highly motivated, we know that Shedeur Sanders, strong connection, but there's also Cam Ward. I mean, you have to go all the way down to 7. So my question is that too far to move back in this draft for you?
It depends. Well, I'll say
6.
this.
I'm sorry, you have to move back to 6.
I'll say this. 6 is probably just outside of blue chip range in this draft. It just depends on the compensation. Like if they offer you a king's ransom, it would be hard not to take the extra picks. And then, I mean, you could still get, even if you drop to 6, you could still get like a Luther Burden III. You could get a James Pierce maybe, but James Pierce's stock seems to be falling pretty rapidly. But, I do think that there would be options there. It just kind of depends on how many picks you can recoup.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right there. I don't think this quarterback class, it's good. It's not, you have to stick and pick good. And I think that's where I'm at. Because maybe you could even get Shedeur Sanders at 7 or Cam Ward at 7. I mean, very unlikely.
I think it's interesting because I think
6. I keep saying 7, but 6.
I think the tape suggests that neither one of those guys, I don't think they're like locked in as top 10 picks. I don't think the tape is worthy of that.
Well, you got to think that if they're trading up, they're going for a quarterback.
Well, yeah, absolutely. But I think like the draft community, we've been talking about the quarterbacks forever, and it's been like, oh yeah, potential top 10 pick, more like top 20 kind of guys. And there are people out there that are still saying like, I wouldn't spend a first round pick on Cam Ward. Now, all of a sudden, like it starts to become draft season, the media starts getting involved and teams start talking, driving up the value of the position. Now, all of a sudden, we're starting to see the stuff that's like Cam Ward, number 1 overall, Shedeur Sanders, number 1 overall. And I just think it's curious because there just seems to be a disconnect between what's being reported and what I feel the tape says. And so I think there's always the possibility, I would just mention it, always the possibility that a lot of this is media driven from teams trying to gauge interest in moving up or moving down, leveraging the importance of the quarterback position for picks, that sort of thing. That I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if one of these quarterbacks would still be available if the Titans move back in the top 10.
It's really early.
It's really early.
But if the Titans were to trade back to 6 and there's no Travis Hunter, no Cam Ward, no Shedeur Sanders, no Abdul Carter, who are you taking at 6?
Oh man,
Are you taking Josh Conerly and sending this fan base into a frenzy?
if he can play right tackle.
What if he could play left tackle?
Well, I know he can play left tackle.
Okay, so what's the difference?
We gonna move J.C. Latham to right tackle?
Why not?
I would. You know what? I might do it.
What about Luther Burden though?
Well, I like Luther Burden.
What about? Do you think Tyler Warren is enough to? Is he? No. Okay.
No, no, I don't. I'm not as high on Warren as other people are. Conerly would be. Oh man, that would be such. That you're right though. The fans would be so pissed if they traded back and then went with Conerly. If they go back far enough, I'm thinking like, when's too early for Mike Green?
There you go. All right. So the other thing to come out is that Jordan Palmer is going to be working with Will Levis over the summer. When I told you that, your words directly to me were like, "For what?"
Yeah, why? I mean, why? I guess he's. You know what? I'm not going to hate on the guy. You try and extend this run as long as you can. You know what I'm saying?
Apparently, Zakai Ziegler has gotten injured, supposedly. So Zakai Ziegler, University of Tennessee basketball player, according to TP up on the YouTube chat. But like at the end of the day, you heard Brian Callahan talk about this quarterback class, and he seemed pretty unenthused, after the first Senior Bowl practice, and no excitement whatsoever when talking about either Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders in person or these quarterbacks. And of course, these quarterbacks have been sorely disappointing anyway.
Sure.
But the Tennessee Titans need a quarterback. Is there a situation in your mind where you think that the most likely scenario, do you think this is the most likely scenario? Like a Derek Carr quarterback and Will Levis is your backup quarterback.
Yeah, that's it's not
it's not sexy.
People aren't going to want to hear it, but I do kind of think things are trending in that direction.
That's what it feels like.
I don't think
based on these quarterback performances, unless you think that Kyle McCord is a guy,
McCord would be the guy,
or Will Howard.
Kyle McCord would be the guy based off of his performance at the Shrine Bowl. And obviously there's still time, Ohio State's pro day, the combine, that sort of stuff, to see Will Howard up close and personal. I still like Will Howard. I like Kyle McCord too, but I don't know. They're going to be an interesting range in this draft class because of the lack of depth. I mean, forget depth. Like there's not a proven guy in this class to me, a guy that just has no questions that you're just, week one, he's going to be the starter.
Because he even said you knew that Joe Burrow was the guy.
Yeah.
Well, okay, that's true. But sometimes you're going to be in quarterback classes where you don't know if someone is the guy. But this one seems a little bit tougher. Yes, Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders are your quarterback 1 and quarterback 2.
Yes.
And yes, but I still akin it to Jameis Winston and Marcus. And I never really thought either of those guys were the guy. Like when Marcus was on the board, I was hoping they would trade out of that pick and pick up Phillip Rivers.
Me too.
But they chose not to.
Yeah.
So, that to me is kind of where I fall in this draft class. Like, I would kind of rather just trade out.
So
if you are being forced to take a quarterback, because there's no reason, if you are drafting for need or being forced to draft for need because of a situation you created, always creates the worst outcome.
Yeah. So my point is, like, the depth of this quarterback class, I don't think it's a knockout class at the top. Probably elevates the middle class of these guys a round or two higher than they probably would otherwise be drafted. And if that's the case, I mean, the top of the second is too early for Will Howard and Kyle McCord. But if they don't pick them, then they don't have a 3rd round pick.
Unless they trade back.
And that is the range that Howard and McCord are probably going to go in. So then you are looking at the guys like Gabriel and Milroe and Seth Hennigan. And I think realistically, like, planning a future of your franchise around one of those guys is not very prudent work, I would say. And so at what point do you just say we're going to forego the quarterback class altogether?
Well, and Curtis says, so what happens if we trade out and both guys end up being studs? I mean, that's very unlikely. Just history tells you that's very unlikely. We can't use the 2024 quarterback class as an outlier.
Yeah.
But also, who is coaching them? Where are they at? What system are they using?
Would they be the same if they were here?
Right. And you can't
question.
you can't draft because of what ifs. You're afraid of the what ifs.
Yeah.
That's just kind of how I roll with this. And listen, if they have conviction about Shedeur and/or Cam, they have to draft Shedeur or Cam.
Yeah.
But when I'm looking at it, I personally don't have conviction.
I don't either. That's where I'm.
And that's where I struggle.
I have conviction
with that.
between the two.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I don't have conviction when an Abdul Carter is sitting there that could really help this team.
And to me, like if you draft Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, something that I floated out there and people think I'm crazy, even if they draft them first overall, I'd still sit them and let them learn. I really would. And I know people think that's crazy because you're like, oh, you wasted a year or whatever. I think they could be better by doing that.
They're both guys. I think
unless they flat out win the job.
This is where, that's a fair.
No, don't hand them the job.
Yeah, I think this is where I circle back to. I feel like a lot of the hype over these quarterbacks is being overblown by the media. Is that I feel like people are looking at these guys as like draft them number 1 overall, start them week 1. And their tape, both of them. And I like Shedeur Sanders. He's my QB1 in this class. And I acknowledge that Cam Ward's talent makes him QB2. And I do think these are the two guys in this class that have the most likely odds of making it in the NFL. But the tape shows they are both guys that could use some time to sit and develop and get used to the NFL game.
There's speed of the NFL game.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. That's how things used to be done in the NFL.
Yeah, and they also have 5 years, right? Like Curtis brings up a good point. Yeah. They have the 5th-year option, as well. Okay, so tomorrow, who are you interested in watching tomorrow that maybe you didn't get enough of today?
Man, that I didn't get enough of today. I'm really jacked up about this guard out of I'm going to call it Sacramento State because Jackson Slater was smacking people today. Really good squatty. Right guard. Titans need a right guard. I think he's a value add late in this draft, but really coils into his stance and springs out of it. Had a good hand level, had good pad level, got low, did a lot of the things that you look for, a lot of the dirty work that you look for a good offensive lineman to do. Really surprised me. I think he laid the foundation for a good week in Mobile, and I want to see how he capitalizes on it.
Well, that will do it for us. Football and Other F Words here on 104.5 The Zone. Brought to you by Lions Ford in Lewisburg, Tennessee. Make sure you go down there if you need a new Ford car or truck, or if you need a pre-owned vehicle. Lions Ford has the best selection in the area, and they'll treat you like family, and they'll always give you the most discounts and bang for your buck in your trade. And then, of course, we have Mark Spain Real Estate as well. You guys know the drill with Mark Spain Real Estate, one of the best real estate brokerages in Nashville, Tennessee. When we come back tomorrow, we'll try to give you some more, some of the people that maybe we didn't really get around to yesterday. Like, I kind of do want to see more of the safeties this week.
Yeah.
I do want to see who bounced back from day one is always a big theme, from day 2 to day 1. Who took the leaps, because that also tells you a lot about their character as well. Other than that, this has been Football and Other F Words, and you have just been effed.